03:47 p.m. near the eastern coast of Greenland. The freezing Davis Strait stretched out like a vast sheet of cracked glass under a low, steel-gray sky. The temperature hovered at -12 Celsius, and a thin, biting wind whipped across the surface, carrying the sharp scent of salt and ancient ice. On the surface, everything appeared eerily calm, almost unnaturally still. A U.S. Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, USS Gravely, sliced through the thickening pack ice with deliberate power. Her grey hull, streaked with frost, reflected the pale Arctic light as she maintained a steady course on what had been billed as a routine anti-submarine warfare patrol. Inside the dimly lit Combat Information Center, CIC, red lights bathed the faces of the watch team. Sonar operators hunched over glowing screens, headphones clamped tight, listening to the endless symphony of the deep. Suddenly, one of them froze. His finger hovered above the keyboard. A faint contact had appeared, extremely quiet, almost ghostly, slipping beneath the jagged underside of the ice shelf like a shadow moving through moonlight. The trace was so faint it could have been dismissed as a distant wail or shifting ice, but something about its consistency made the operator's pulse quicken. At the exact same moment, several miles away, a NATO frigate flying the white ensign of the Royal Navy executed a sharp course change. She turned directly toward the same coordinates, her bow wave cutting a fresh path through the drifting ice floes. No one on either ship's bridge realized what was already below them. Something silent, something patient, something watching. These waters weren't empty, far from it. They formed the legendary GIUK gap, Greenland, Iceland, United Kingdom, the single most strategically vital naval choke point on the planet. For more than 70 years, since the height of the Cold War, this narrow corridor of ocean had been the only realistic route for Russian submarines of the Northern Fleet to break out from their protected bastions in the Barents and Kara Seas into the vast, open Atlantic. Control the GIUK, and you control the undersea domain of the North Atlantic. Lose it, and an adversary could threaten the eastern seaboard of the United States, the vital sea lanes to Europe, and the entire NATO alliance with near impunity. Greenland itself sat like a frozen sentinel at the western edge of this gateway. Its ice-covered mountains bristled with early warning radars, satellite ground stations, air bases carved into permafrost, and deep underground listening posts that formed part of the global SUS network. With climate change accelerating the retreat of Arctic sea ice, new shipping lanes were opening, vast untapped mineral deposits were becoming accessible, and the competition for control of these waters had intensified dramatically. Russian surface ships and submarines were probing farther south than at any time since 1991. NATO responded by increasing patrols to levels not seen in decades. Every naval movement in this region was deliberate, calculated, and watched by multiple intelligence agencies. Tonight, these waters were unusually crowded. 2 NATO allies, 1 American, 1 British, shared the same ocean, but they carried very different objectives beneath the surface. On the surface, USS Gravely moved with the quiet confidence of a warship that knew its role. She was a flight IA Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, 509 feet long, displacing nearly 10,000 tons, armed with 96 vertical launch cells, 2 5-inch guns, close-in weapons systems, and a full suite of anti-submarine helicopters. Her crew, over 300 officers and enlisted, had been at sea for weeks, rotating through high-readiness watches. In the CIC, the tactical action officer monitored the Link 16 data link, while the sonar team listened intently. They knew the Arctic was heating up in more ways than one. Russia's Northern Fleet had surged patrols to Cold War levels, deploying both Akula and Yassin-class submarines with increasing frequency. Gravely's mission was clear: detect, track, and if necessary deter any Russian intruders attempting to slip through the GR. But tonight she wasn't alone. Several miles to the northeast, HMS Sutherland, a state-of-the-art Type 23 frigate of the Royal Navy, glided through the same icy waters under NATO Task Group command. Sutherland was one of the most capable anti-submarine warships in the world, equipped with the advanced sonar 28-7 towed array, a long, flexible tail that could be deployed thousands of meters behind the ship to listen for the faintest underwater sounds. Both ships were fully aware of each other. Friendly identification, friend or foe, if signals pinged back and forth automatically. Radio silence was maintained, but the data link exchanged positions and intentions. 2 close allies, same ocean, different objectives. The Americans were hunting for Russian intruders. The British had their own, very specific mission. At 0352, Gravely's ANSQ-89 integrated undersea warfare suite detected something unusual. A faint contact appeared on the passive broadband and narrowband displays, barely rising above the ambient noise floor of cracking ice, distant biologics, and thermal layers. It was extremely quiet. No telltale propeller cavitation. No rhythmic pump jet hum. The contact moved at less than 5 knots, hugging the underside of the ice shelf, using the irregular topography to mask its signature. The sonar operator marked it tentatively as possible biologic activity, but his gut told him otherwise. The trace was too consistent, too deliberate, too controlled. He adjusted the frequency filters, trying to pull more detail from the noise. Meanwhile, aboard HMS Sutherland, the sonar team heard absolutely nothing. Her world-class Sonar 2087 towed array, renowned for its ability to detect the stealthiest modern submarines at extreme ranges, picked up 0 anomalies. Whatever was out there had either gone completely silent or was using the ice and thermal layers to perfection. The US crew tightened. Tension rippled through the CIC. They didn't know it yet, but the game had already begun long before their screens lit up. The contact was HMS Astute, one of the Royal Navy's most advanced Astute-class nuclear-powered attack submarines. She was the quietest submarine Britain had ever built. Over 39,000 carefully shaped anechoic tiles coated her teardrop hull, absorbing active sonar pings like a black hole swallows light. Her pump jet propulsor produced almost no cavitation noise, even at higher speeds. Advanced vibration isolation mountings kept her internal machinery from transmitting sound into the surrounding water. Astute was shadowing USS Gravely at a safe distance, meticulously gathering acoustic intelligence on the destroyer's own noise signature. Her propeller harmonics, pump noise, flow noise around the hull, even the subtle sounds of her auxiliary systems. This was not an act of hostility. It was a carefully planned NATO exercise in blue-on-blue awareness, testing how well Allied forces could detect and identify each other underwater. Astute was effectively invisible to Sutherland's towed array and almost invisible to Gravely's hull-mounted sonar. Almost. HMS Sutherland, wanting to contribute to the patrol, decided to increase her own activity. She deployed her active sonar in short, powerful bursts pings designed to map the seabed and detect any hidden contacts. At the same time, she increased speed to 18 knots, her twin shafts churning the frigid water into a frothing wake. Suddenly, the entire acoustic environment grew loud. Surface-generated noise, propeller cavitation, waves slap against ice, engine reverberations bounced and refracted off icebergs, pressure ridges, and thermal layers, creating millions of false echoes and reverberation clutter. The ocean turned chaotic. Astute's carefully preserved stealth advantage began to erode. Her own ultra-quiet propulsion system now had to compete with the frigate's growing racket. The deep became dangerous. Astute's captain, monitoring the rising noise level from the control room, ordered a slow, deliberate repositioning deeper into the water column, slower speed, angling toward a known thermocline layer where temperature and salinity gradients would bend sound waves away from surface sensors. They believed they were still invisible. Astute slipped into what appeared to be a perfect acoustic corridor or natural shadow zone beneath the thick ice shelf where sound propagation was severely limited. It was textbook cover, or so they believed. That single move changed everything. Because the Americans weren't the only ones listening, there was already a third player in the water. USS Minnesota, Virginia-class fast attack submarine, had been patrolling these waters for hours. She was running at ultra-slow speed on her pump jet propulsors, making less noise than the ambient optic environment. Her hull was covered in the latest generation of anechoic coatings. All machinery was mounted on vibration-isolated rafts. Minnesota had detected Astute's faint maneuvers long before Gravely's surface sonar had. She had quietly positioned herself in the perfect ambush location, directly between Astute and the two surface ships, hidden in a deep layer where thermoclines masked her presence. The hunter had been hunted from the start. NATO's most advanced British submarine was now caught squarely in the crosshairs of America's underwater dominance. Minnesota didn't fire a shot. She didn't need to. She maneuvered with surgical precision into the optimal position, directly astern of Astute at close range. Her large aperture bow array locked on with crystal clarity, capturing every subtle sound Astute made. Minnesota then flooded just enough of her own acoustic signature, a subtle, controlled ping of active noise to announce her presence without aggression. Astute's crew felt it instantly. Alarm lights flashed across their sonar consoles. Contact close, American. HMS Sutherland realized too late that her own active sonar transmissions had painted everyone's position across the acoustic battlefield. Astute was now acoustically boxed in. There was no clean escape route without exposing herself further. The US submarine held total control. No weapons were fired. No damage was sustained. Just pure, silent dominance. Control doesn't need explosions. Astute's captain, recognizing the situation, ordered an immediate emergency disengage. The submarine began a slow, controlled ascent, surfacing well clear of the American destroyer and the British frigate. HMS Sutherland ceased active sonar transmissions and altered course to the north, restoring radio silence. USS Gravely continued her patrol exactly as before, as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. The message had been delivered loud and clear without a single word spoken on open channels. The Arctic War isn't fought with missiles or torpedoes, it is fought with sound. Allies don't always share the same underwater picture, even when operating under the same command. Even the most advanced platforms like Britain's Astute-class can be outstealthed and outmaneuvered by the Virginia-class. America owns the underwater domain. In the GIUK gap, silence is the ultimate weapon. And tonight, the United States reminded everyone, friend and potential foe alike, who truly holds it. What happens when the next exercise isn't just a test? Next time, the US submarine won't stay hidden. We'll dive deep into how Virginia-class boats are rewriting the rules of undersea warfare forever. If this silent showdown shocked you, smash that like button right now. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Could the UK sub have escaped if they played it differently? And make sure you subscribe with notifications turned on, because the Arctic is just getting started. Thanks for watching. Stay vigilant.